A very good evening and welcome to what is to be the final show of regular fixtures of the Super League before Christmas 2022 in a different reality from the Super League. On a day when Argentina win the World Cup, maybe that will inspire our own Mr. Mike Savage to lead Australia to the World Cup glory in 2002 at the end of this current season. We'll have to catch up with him very soon. But joining me tonight is not Mr. Savage. It is one of the all-time greats of the Super League. Good evening, Burn Boss Ian. How are you, pal?
I'm good, mate. Thank you. Yeah, I'm a bit late, so I wasn't in the green room. I almost didn't make it. I dozed off after offering my services.
That's fine. You'll notice I had full faith in you by even going live before you'd made it into the green room.
I know. Well, I offered my services, and then I put the 1980s version of House of Cards on, and then I had second thoughts after remembering that Swindon beat Barrow at the at the weekend, and I thought, actually, no, okay, I'm going to leave him in the lurch. Woke up with 5 minutes to go, and I thought, why not? Let's get the pretzels out and the whiskey out, and let's go again.
Pretzels and whiskey, how very festive. And in the season of goodwill, mate, I wasn't going to mention Swindon versus Barrow at any point this evening. So there we go. However, it cannot be goodwill to all men, because someone or some people who did not show mercy, as was announced earlier this week to the group and posted out live on the official Super League socials a short while ago, Astor are under new management, having seen Alf Bridge sacked. The similarly named Alfred Bridge takes charge tonight. Are you surprised with that news? The first, as far as I can recall, the first actual sacking since I took over chairmanship.
Well, I was a little bit surprised because I thought that Jens had suffered a sacking at the Vikings because there was a huge managerial bounce under your stewardship. But you mentioned in the chat this week that he wasn't sacked.
No, Jens had never actually been sacked. He just did turn it around.
So that was a huge turnaround. So, yeah, maybe, Ralph Fridge comes in this week and turns it around at Astor. I mean, he's got a good chance of doing something because it means at home for a start. We know that he's obviously in charge of a fantastic squad. It won't be enough to lift him off the bottom, but it would be enough to, put put a bit of something Scrooge's way to this.
You're struggling to contain your excitement at the prospect of an Aston win this evening.
There's just the thought of it, isn't there? Because I mean, it couldn't be set up any more beautifully, could it? I mean, there's no hiding in front of the grief that Alf's been dished out by
everyone.
By everyone,
but Macca specifically.
Well, Macca's chief cheerleader, isn't he? Come on, and I mean, I'm not one for Schadenfreude, really. I mean, I've learned my lesson. I've learned my lesson tonight from everything going Lionel Messi's way for a kickoff. So I'm no longer rooting against anyone in particular. We'll just take it as it comes. But yeah, if 3 points was to come Astor's way, I mean, I wouldn't be chuckling, but it would be amusing.
We're into the home stretch now. 6 games left of the regular season, and it is tight, isn't it? I mean, not only are you essentially joint top, only second on goal difference, but there's only a 5. With 6 games to go, there's only a 5-point gap between yourself, Coast, and Casuals and Vikings, who aren't even in the top 6 currently.
Yeah, I mean, regarding our fortunes, I mean, I've been here so many times. I mean, we've come second twice when we've been coasting towards the league title, and somehow managed to throw a nasty run of form in the last 6, 7, 8 games, and missed out both times. Again, 2 or 3 weeks ago was 6, 7 points clear. We can't buy a win at the minute. So I mean, we're looking at top 2. Realistically, we're hoping for top 6. But yeah, form ain't great. And there's a couple of teams around us that are looking fantastic. So yeah, as long as we're in the mix, as long as we're in the playoffs, it's a successful season for us. East Coast look hugely strong. I mean, you got teams in there like Walton Casuals, who 3 or 4 weeks ago looked like they were, borderline. That quality, strength of a fantastic 11 are coming through. You got Gazelles, who, they don't seem to do anything ever, but they're just up there all the time. Dragons, I mean, what can you say about the Dragons? Just stupid form. Yeah, we're floundering, and we just want to fall over the line. But there's that kind of tasty, exciting chase around 6, 7, 8. Haggis looking good. It's all to play for. I mean, when you get down to the business end of this league, this season looks as attractive as any season to be following.
I've just got up on the screen there, you're running. And obviously the age-old saying is there's no easy games. You can only beat what's in front of you, etc., etc. But you look like you are going to have a substantial say in what happens inside those top 6 places.
Mate, I'd take our running. I don't mind our last 6 games. When you get dished out I don't know how many managers take the fixtures into account. I see in the chat sometimes, and I see at the end of broadcasts, people are saying, who have we got next? Who have we got next? I mean, I know our fixtures, weeks in advance. It's all planned out. And I looked at our last 6 and I just thought, yeah, can't moan at it. The problem being we haven't won in 4. We're away tonight. So for us to sort of get something going, we have to turn our fortunes round. It's going into those 6 games not in form that's the concern. It's not the actual games that we've got. So yeah, we'll see.
The big news coming out of the furnace is that the deal is over the line. Cmsl is now a Northern Burn player.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to put a couple of things straight as well. There's a lot of comments last week. Obviously
around you getting Scally and Keane suspended going the other way.
Yeah, I mean, I know the thing is it's not going to work exactly in our favour because Tomasi is one yellow away from a suspension himself. So these things you've got to go with. So I mean, he gets a yellow tonight. We're without Tomasi next game as well. So one thing we didn't really account for was Jeremy's getting sent off. Scally was one yellow away from a suspension anyway. So the red card last week was probably a little bit more sort of exciting than it needed to be. And obviously, I put my team in before I even approached Scott about the deal anyway. The deal was really more a case of on a whim. I'd been chasing Tomasi all season. I went in with one final. I said, here's 4 players, choose 2 of them for Tomasi. And he took 2 of 4 guys. So I mean, he could have took 2 guys that weren't due a suspension. So it's just the way it fell. There was no skullduggery involved.
Well, Ghost Games permitting, your game away at Vikings will be last on tonight. Quick look at the fixtures there. You've obviously struggled to contain your excitement for Astor Fulchester, but is there anything else that catches your eye?
Well, there is. The bottom game, the Mafia collide, 8th versus 10th. Last chance saloon for Bostock, but Walton looking to get something going. That looks like a really cool game to me. Dragons, who must be absolutely banking on 11 on the trot against a floundering Triple P. Be interested to see if they can get that one over the line. And then obviously, we get bombarded day in, day out. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you doing, gentlemen? Haggis v Tortuga Celtics. We know that Greaves' record against Ian ain't great. We know that Ian's the greatest manager of all time. Already manager of the season, so it'll be good to watch that one as well.
Well, is there anyone in particular you'd like to start with where possible, or let the game play out?
No, you know me, mate. I'll roll.
Let's go. And it is the one that you picked out. Casuals at home to Stanley in game number 1. No reserve swaps requested by either manager from memory. In what was the final swaps before the playoffs. And here is the Casuals team, unchanged from last time out.
Yeah, and why would he? He's got something going. His 11 is fantastic. He doesn't have strength in depth, but his 11 is great. Cambiaso's obviously come in, done a job for him, looking decent. Kind of, it's one of those sort of few occasions where you stumble on something and your team and your squad just looks that little bit bigger than it did a couple of weeks ago. And that's obviously prime position for him. Being a little bit light perhaps in the AM area and maybe figuring out that Ronaldo ain't an AM. So he's gone 4 across the middle with that kind of barrel of a 6 in there as well. Cliver, decent. Was it something like, I don't know, he's 6 and 11, something like that, 8 and 13. So it's not bad, and he's obviously blessed with the best keeper in the league. So, looking good at home to a floundering side, I guess.
So again, we highlighted this in the sort of first section there. Both sides' playoff chances just completely sort of falling out the window almost in terms of position and form currently. Do you view this at the stage of the season we're at as last chance saloon for them both? That this is if there was a game that sort of identified as a must-win, this is it.
I think Stanley's trajectory has been kind of set a few weeks ago. This has been, I mean, he had a decent cup game, but then he's had a few league games that haven't been great. I think there's actually green shoots for Walton. I think they're in a much healthier position probably than Bostock, and I think I think they're that 2 places. I think they're in amongst it a little bit more, and I think there's a little bit more momentum there. You know, it's so tight in that 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. They do have a decent bit of momentum there. So, you know, I think they're all right. There's a couple of surprises there. I mean, I think shelving Lumberg is a bit of an omission given the chances that Johnston and Zepeda have had this season. But yeah, I think they're in a much healthier position than Bostock, in all honesty.
If I was the thing that highlights here is, and I won't go into the specifics, but you can see that there's 5 players with the unhappy sign next to them. For the most part of the season, when any team's had this, it's because they want a new contract. In this occasion, it's only one of these players is currently considering a new contract. There is a starting to become a more and more reality of players losing faith in the manager's ability. So he does need to turn it around quickly if he is going to. Although, as he says, he feels he can still lose 3 games this season. And obviously, points-wise, that they are very much in it. But they need to... This could come down as much to goal difference as it is points come the end of the season. So they will certainly have to look at that. As for Stanley, interesting pick that Tomadera starts in place of Montella. Apart from that, no real surprises. Keane comes in for his debut. The fans are excited to see him sign. Obviously, as you've already spoken about, Scally suspended, joining Ibrahim Sahid, who's unavailable. Ricardinho injured as well. No Del Piero in the team either. And Cabello, who had been doing well, also omitted from the squad.
Yeah, Cabello's a surprise. I mean, it's brought a couple of unknowns in the AMC, and I know that Scott's been talking about being heavily loaded at AMC. So I look at that 3 there. Jaxie's going to play. I can understand that Strand would miss out. Cabello surprises me, but then Keane, you think, you know, he's took him off me. He's going to bring him in and give him a chance. Keane's one of those who probably kind of tries to dominate the guy next to him. So I mean, if it, you know, in an ideal world, I'd been playing Keane on my own, on his own, but I had Kewell, so they both go in there. And I think he asked a lot of questions at one point in the season because he went narrow and it worked well, stuck with it. You know, but he looked stronger for me probably when he was going with something a little bit more regular. But yeah, transfers have kind of dictated things. He's lost a lot of big players. So maybe he decided weeks and weeks ago that perhaps narrow was the way to go. If so, someone like Said's a massive loss because I have never seen Ibrahim Said let anybody down in this league ever.
Well, going into the first game then, can I ask you for your prediction, please?
I can't see past a home win. I think Walton has started to look really strong, so I think 2 clear goals, home win.
2 clear goals, home win. His prediction in it is a very quick start for Casuals, but they don't score their first couple of opportunities in the match. And there's a first goal, and it's Aymar who opens scoring for the away side. Pasazoglu going in the book, the home side trying to press forward. And there's the equaliser through Veron on 16 minutes. Both sides do look dangerous as they come forward. Here come the away side again. Aymar heavily involved. And there's Tomadera with his first ever goal for Stanley to make it 2-1. If the 2 clear goals, home win's going to come in. It's going to be one hell of a game. Soroczynski from the spot makes it 2 apiece. And I did say earlier today, I hope that everyone's put in entertaining sides and these 2 are kicking things off properly. and we get to half-time, Ian, 2 apiece.
Do you know how often this season have we got through the first half of the first game and thought, are we glad we got this one out of the way? We actually picked the best game to go to first. 4 goals in the first half in the Mafia derby. Yeah, fantastic.
Scott won't be particularly pleased looking at that tackles won percentage, will he?
No, I'm a big fan of getting your tackles in. I don't care about passes completed, headers won, but for me, tackles won is always a decent pointer in this league. And he's losing that battle, which very often for me looks like a sort of a pointer to the second half. And to have played so well and to have got a couple of goals in the first half and not to be losing that particular battle, for me, doesn't particularly bode well.
Let's have a look at the home side and see what we could pick out there. Veron pulling the strings there. He's got his goal. He's rating a 9 at half-time. Not often you see players score and be rating a 6, as is the case with Soroczynski. Klompe, the only player currently in the book. It wasn't who I mentioned earlier, but a fairly solid. Lopez, you mentioned about the AM position at casuals, and Lopez may be struggling a little bit.
Yeah, I mean
he is up against 3, isn't he?
Yeah, I when I was offering Keane out, I mean, I did have a decent deal that I was tempted to offer Hodgie with, which would have included Keane, because I think he would have been fantastic there on his own. Yeah, I think obviously Soroczynski's on that 6 because his goals are pen, perhaps, maybe. The interesting thing for me is that sometimes Veron is low ratings first half, high ratings second half, and he's already kicked off with the 9. Just bear with me while I turn the alarm off, mate. 1 sec.
Yeah, no worries, pal. Confirmation that Tommy Smith is coming on for Claudio Lopez at half-time, and while Ian does that, I will. Oh no, he's back. I was just saying there. Confirmation Tommy Smith coming on at half-time, Ian.
Yeah, I mean he played him a couple of times earlier on in the season, didn't he? And he did okay with it. He's on for Lopez, is he?
Yes.
I mean, I think Ronaldo's one of those when you say he's not an AM and he's not for one behind the striker. For me, I'd almost be tempted to keep plugging away with him because on this iteration, he does look a decent Ronaldo attribute-wise. The attributes are there for him to play in that position. So, yeah, Smith ahead of Ronaldo is a big call. Probably the right one, though.
And Steve pointing out Zé Roberto very much back in amongst the assists. Let's have a look at the away side, see what's going on. Passing numbers are higher throughout the squad. It's a lot more shared possession. Ratings not too dissimilar to what we've seen from casuals. Maybe just they've got that the home side that has got that 1 or 2 players just performing to that a little bit higher level at the moment.
And no surprise, the man who's sort of getting that extra rating, Patsoglu always does well for whoever picks him, and he's got through some huge numbers there, 10 tackles, along with Malevsky, although he's won a couple more of those tackles, and 3 more of them have been key. But it does show they're having to get through a lot of work as well, probably because they've got maybe like a luxury player like AMR in front of them, who's maybe putting a little bit less work in than the rest of them. So yeah, I mean, if they can keep taking their chances, which there's not that many of them, but they do seem to be taking them. Yeah, we'll see.
Well, no sign of Scott in the chat, so we will carry on to 60 with just that 1 sub made for the home side, and see if Smith can carry on the attacking intent. And there's set piece, and there is Smith, and it's cleared off the line. Big opportunity there. and a minute early, but not too bad. Lillian Thuram's rating moving up to a 9, as is Zé Roberto's at this stage. It's midnight. Jens, you're last. It doesn't matter. We're seeing both sides still going in with considerable intent, Ian. Maybe a little bit surprised that neither side have scored additional goals, but when you look at that bench, is this set up for Ronaldo to come on and do something, or do you think that sticking as is should be sufficient?
Well, probably not, because the change that I would have made would already have probably involved Ronaldo. So, oh, he is right. Okay. I mean, he has shown frustration with Kluivert in the past, hasn't he? Comandini has come in at times and back out again. So yeah, why not? Veron slipped down to an 8, but Zé Roberto up to a 9. So there's different people getting involved this half, perhaps. Yeah, why not roll the dice and see?
And just quickly on Stanley there, we can see Yepes dropping down to a 5, whereas Patzazoglu himself raises up to a 9. So when Scott watches this back, he'll be able to see what the situation was at the hour mark. So Ronaldo on, can he make the difference? Tommy Smith again getting involved. 16 minutes plus injury time to play. Here comes Cambiasso. Still level pegging at this stage. Long effort from Jacques. He fails to convert. Ronaldo coming in with Zé Roberto. And Ronaldo picks up the cross. Soroczynski then picks it up. And it's 3-2. With 12 minutes to play, Soroczynski gets his second of the game. And is that enough now for Wolves and Casuals to earn crucial 3 points and be the final nail, really, in that coffin for Stanley? And there's 4. An excellent finish. It was hit from 20 yards from Veron. And they have run away with it in the end. It's gone horribly wrong. Lillian Thuram picking up a last-minute injury. Let's just bring Brett Emerton on there. And there's the final whistle. In the end, it was comfortable for Casuals, wasn't it?
Well, it was nice for them to get that late goal to give that 2 clear goals that I predicted, because as Swan will tell you, I don't predict very much in this league. So that, I mean, there's no way I put 4-2 down on his prediction. No. But at least 2 clear goals was the shout. Yeah, it looked like a midfield battle. I mean, we said Soroczynski was on a lowish rating because his goal was a pen, but he's gone and got a goal from open play. We mentioned that Veron had maybe, started off really quickly and might have quite a second half, but he's gone and kicked on and got another goal. Be interesting to see how the Thuram injury pans out. But if there's one place in that squad that Casuals are solid at, it is centre back. I think I'm right in saying that Ayala could come in for Thuram next week, and they would know no difference.
Well, let's have a look at the home side stats. Zé Roberto does get man of the match, and look at that, 2 players in the end going up to 10 ratings, both Veron and Zé Roberto. And just solid throughout. Look at all those 8s littered throughout the team as well. I mean, that's pretty much as good as it looks, isn't it?
Well, there's been questions, hasn't there, this season over Zé Roberto. Is he as good as Zé Roberto as people normally see? But there's 2 assists there in 4 goals, which doubles his assists for the season. So maybe he was just waiting for a little bit of something to click there. Again, Cambiasso, I know is your man. And that takes him even closer to an average of an 8 rating after 3 games. So looking good on that score. Just looking a little bit healthier, isn't it? Guys coming off the bench, 7s, 8s. So that little bit of momentum that I talked about before the game seems to be coming to fruit now.
As for Stanley, they just cannot get out of this rut at the minute. And it was mentioned, I think, last time that it looks like the fight is gone and they're just kind of giving up with this season.
Yeah, I think they're maybe done, aren't they? Wouldn't you say? I mean, I feel a bit guilty because they could have done with a Scally in a game like that. Put some tackles in because, Milevsky, 14 tackles, only made 4 of them. Yepes, 10, only made 5 of them. Pat Soglu's obviously missed a few at the end there. His 9 slipped back down to an 8. Maybe they could have done with Scally tonight, or even, dare I say, a Tomasi. But it always kind of looked like a Casuals win to me.
It did indeed. Congratulations to Casual on a big 3 points. Just puts a bit of pressure on all the teams in and around that top 6 position from the very, very beginning. Next, we head over to East Coast, and they entertain the Badgers, who are without the injured Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, Rustico also unfit, while Famani is suspended, and they have 4 players a yellow card away from suspension. They made, I want to say it was 2 alterations during the reserve swaps, and both of them come back in to try and have an impact. Rayner and Closer promoted in place of Vlahovic and Haddad.
Right.
From memory. Interestingly, Agahawa was selected to start despite only being on 85% fitness. But then again, we know that Tato is very much in the camp that fitness is a myth.
Well, there's a few of us in that camp, isn't there? Fitness is a myth. I mean, there's a slight difference, I think, starting someone on an 85 or continuing with someone half-time or at 60 who's lower than the rest. But in fairness to Tato, Agahawa's had a decent-ish season. It's not very often you see him over a 7.1 at this sort of age or at these sort of proceedings. So I can see why he is kind of sticking with him. I don't mind that at all. It's being involved in the league as long as I have. It's about as decent an Agahawa as we ever often see. In all honesty, Closer, I think, has done nothing. And the lad that he's sent down the reserves in place of him looks pretty tasty to me. So that's a little bit of a surprise. But having said that, I looked at the guys that I would probably have took off Boothstown a few weeks back. There weren't that many. The business that he's done recently in the squad that he's developed, I think, there's probably a few more guys that I would maybe take off them now. They're looking a bit stronger. So they do seem to be heading in the right direction. But obviously they're playing against what is currently probably just about the strongest team in the Super League. So it's a massive task.
It's always an interesting talking point, and I don't believe we've mentioned it on any of your appearances this season. But Tate always does go for the rather attack-minded looking substitutes bench. What have you made on that approach? Because a lot of people generally go for 2 defensive players and then 1 striker.
Well, I mean, my sort of like my approach to this by now. I think you pick your starting 11 to play 90 minutes. You have confidence in it, and your 4 on the bench should try and cover every eventuality. So for me, without a defensive option on the bench, you are having to shift people around, and your 4 DMs, there's not really a defender in sight. So injury to Vialli, Lasisi, they are going to struggle. So it's a bit of a gamble. I just think that if you're covering like 2 midfield players and a striker on the bench, there's room there to stick a defender on the bench. It's not it's not an approach I go with. But yeah, we're all different.
Pass meters between the sides. Badgers have won both of them in the league. They had a 2-0 home win. Sol Campbell got sent off in that game. Van der Vaart, man of the match. And then they also met in cup action where Badgers ran out 4-2 winners in what was an entertaining affair that game. So form is with them on that sense. Do they have the edge over the current league leaders?
Van der Vaart bench though.
Steve trying to work out the tactics from Badgers in the comments. Let's have a look at the current league leaders then. And it's hard not to be impressed with Coast at the moment, isn't it? You know, up there with you, level on points, but not necessarily rated at the very start of the season. A lot of people said that, you know, we've seen what Dimble can do and what he's capable of, and it clearly wasn't a bad squad, but no one was really tipping them to outright win it. So to be cut top of the table, 6 games to go is an impressive feat.
Absolutely. We knew he was a good manager. We knew he was getting decent results out of average players and average teams in the past. He now clearly has a better squad than he's probably ever had. He's managed to finally find a place for Hoffland in a centre back, alongside one of the strongest centre backs in the league. I mean, for me, he has, you know, he's got a top 2 goalkeeper. He's made some great transfer business. I mean, I should know personally. I think that he's made such great transfer business because every time I approach a manager for a certain player, they'd say to me, "Oh, sorry, he's just gone to East Coast." So he's obviously like one step ahead of me in the market, and he's doing great work there. He's got one of the best strikers on the game, and he's sensible enough just to leave him there and not cause any trouble. And he'll just bring you goals. I mean, on one, I wish he'd have played this against me with maybe Ouya in centre mid, because I think we might have had the beating of this team. I don't think it's necessarily as strong as he put out against me, but Ortega absolutely flying, Boomer back. You know, I mean, with a superb deputy in York Bomber who's been flying this season. He can't even get in the squad. Yeah, it does look quite good for him, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Let's head to Match Centre and ask you for a prediction, please.
Well, I can't see past the home win because I would probably like to have seen Van der Vaart involved for Boothstown. So again, I'm going to go home win by 2 clear.
Home by 2 is the prediction. Very quick out of the blocks for Coast. Trying to score within the first seconds. Badgers slowly getting their way back into it. Ortega, Henri, corner kick, Larson getting involved. It looks very home side dominated at the minute. Henri missing another opportunity. Attack position, free kicks, but just again failing to score from them. Van Nistelrooy's name's starting to creep into it a bit more. But it looked, as we approach half-time, the home side still look the most likely. Henri this time getting involved. Another opportunity wasted. 3 minutes to be added on. Nothing happens within those 3 minutes. Get to half-time, Ian, at 0-0.
Yeah, from that text, it was absolutely crying out. Goal was imminent, wasn't it? So
it's almost as if half-time came at the wrong time.
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, I've got to say well done to Boothstown for holding out because didn't feel like, you know, they were going to end at 45 with a clean sheet. So hurdle number 1 out of the way. You know, the level on passes, the level on tackles, getting battered in the air, which I'm never that bothered about. But then obviously, yeah, it's one-way traffic.
Let's have a look at the home side in a bit more detail then. Not too dissimilar to what we saw in the first game from Casuals, but you might be a bit concerned when Henri in the position he's playing isn't seeing as much of the ball as you might like?
No, I'm never concerned about Henry's perceived involvement or lack of. I mean, I think Dimble knows my thoughts on Henry. I think his class. He's won the thing in my team. Never looks like he's pulling up trees, but always does decent job for you. Yes, you can probably get people with bigger numbers in there, and I'm sure that Dimble will always be looking to, the manager that he is will be looking for gains in that position and maybe look for someone who can give him bigger numbers, which is fair enough. As he's done well with Larson coming in and gaining contributions. But yeah, the sixes, a lot of sevens surprised me a little bit. But yeah, more the lack of, touches, passes. Yeah, they've got a lot of chances by not having actually done that much with the ball. So,
well, Dimble's saying roll to 60, so let's have a look and see what Tato's side are up to, and it's just a lot more sixes, basically, isn't it? The other sort of main area of stats don't look too dissimilar. It's just that what you say Costa are doing it without having much of the ball. Badgers are kind of just not able to have that quality within there.
Yeah, I look at Rayner in particular, who's he's been fairly average in there with his six.
Yep.
Small amount of touches, small amount of tackles, no headers, no assists, blah blah blah. And is it because as Van der Vaart plateaued a little bit? Is he just resting because he's young? I mean, he's full fitness, isn't he? It's an interesting one, is that, especially given his track record against East Coast. To me, that looks like a clear one to perhaps, make a substitution along those lines. But
both managers are in fact rolling to 60, so no one looking to blink just yet. Let's resume the action for the second half and see if this continues to be something of a chess match. The home side still look the more threatening up to now. Henry off of a rebound from Anelka. Pause the game on 62 minutes, still 0-0. The home side still looking more dangerous, Ian.
Yes, and maybe a little bit more solid in the middle, given, I pointed out at the start I wasn't a massive fan of bringing him in, but maybe they do look a bit more solid in the middle, and he's got an 8 alongside Kerr. Mm-hmm. Asking Vogel to do a bit more, which clearly he's capable of. We talked about benches earlier, didn't we? I think Etu was maybe a bit unlucky not to have position, because he has made the odd contribution in the few times that he's played this season, hasn't he? He's only two substitute
appearances, yeah, 2 assists.
So he would be kind of a candidate to come on for someone like Larson or Henry. But the rest of it's kind of set up just to nick something in the last half hour, isn't it?
Etu for Larson and swap with Henry is the substitution from Coast. So you called for him and he is on.
Which will please you, no doubt.
I am a fan. As for Badgers, Frey very much keeping them in there with a 9. Still so many 6s littered throughout the side.
Yeah, I mean, this is the debate that's rumbled on in the chat over the past week, isn't it? Goalkeepers, average ratings. Some people think that just because your goalkeeper's got the highest average rating, he's the best goalkeeper of the season. Frey has probably conceded about as many as any goalkeeper going, but here he is. On his 7.35, which is pretty higher than my keeper, who's conceded far less, and he having another stormer. So Agarhauer at 73, but again, fitness is a myth. Rayner for me again. Rayner for Van der Vaart looks obvious, but
that is the substitution being made.
Right. Okay. Interesting to see why he was dropped, but Tato knows what he's doing.
Now, I find this a bit more interesting. So, Olasadabi's coming on for closer up top.
Yeah.
And yet, Kesman, the striker, who is also coming on, is coming on in the attacking midfield position.
Without swapping Olasadabi for Kesman.
Correct.
Right. Okay. I think Kesman, has he not played Kesman at AMC a couple of weeks back?
He did.
I mean, Kesman is one there, kind of just stick him in the team because at some point he will just do something and it'll be an assist or a goal and it will be the only thing he does for a fortnight, and he won't touch the ball again for another 3 weeks. So I kind of get that, just having him on the pitch to try and do something. Maybe I would have swapped those two. Maybe neither of them really working a two. We shall see. But I think he's ending the team. For me, he's ending the game with a stronger team than he started with.
Interesting. Well, both sides then have made their changes. Let's see if either of them can bring a goal. This has kind of got a feel for me at the moment with the domination that Coast have had to a certain extent. And as I talk, Ortega, who you spoke about in the intro, opens the scoring for the home side. I was going to say I had a feel that Coast may continue to dominate in certain areas, but Badgers might nick it. But if they're going to do that, they're going to have to come from behind inside the final 10 now. Inside the final 5, absolutely nothing happening at the conclusion of this game. Ball goes out for throw-in. Ortega, Henri. Kerchips in. Etu. Frey gets in the way and tries to set off a counter. Van der Vaart out to Zenden. Van Nistelrooy offside. Anelka can't miss. Anelka doesn't miss. And as they get into injury time, the game concludes 2-0 to East Coast.
Yeah, it was one-way traffic, won it for 90 minutes. I think, I'd love to have seen the Badgers start with that team. I think the more changes you make towards the end, you're chasing it a little bit, perhaps. Yeah, a shame, really. But you can't deny Coast dominance, and it's kind of a reflection of their, last 2/3 of their season, really.
And Tato saying boring in the chat. Well, you are the manager, mate. If you're saying that the style of play is boring, you'll have to do something about it, won't you? Let's have a look then. Ortega picking up man of the match for his 9 rating. Obviously scored this evening. Anelka carries on scoring goals. I believe, if I remember rightly, he's the #1 contender to Sigalko for top goal scorer this season.
Yeah, one closer to Sigalko. Is he now? Is he 4 behind? Something like that.
Who's the defenders Coast have? Well, tonight it's Campbell and Hofflandmacher. Tato's saying he's trying to improve the style of play. And Jens, how can I join the video? If you'd like to join, I'll send you the link, mate. Not a problem. As for Badgers, it just didn't get past all of those sixes, did it? It was just distinctly average from the pressure they were under in.
It was. They were under the cosh for a long, long time. But, I mean, they've got a lot of players there who've seen a lot of the ball. I mean, you look at, how often do you go away from home against a team like East Coast and you've got, nearly 40 touches from Kaladze, Viali, Johnson. And, yeah, a lot of the touches are deep in the team. But there is signs there that they're getting control of the game a little bit. It's just a shame that, you look at Van der Vaart there, 10 passes, 10 completed, tackles 100. He's completed 100% of his tackles. He's completed 100% of his passes. But he only played 27 minutes. Like I say, I would like to have seen maybe the team that ended the game start in the game. Miroslav Klose, for as much as AI and he's got some of the stats in the right place, he's never going to he's never going to be a Super League striker. Shouldn't even be in his first 24, in all honesty. He's sent down a lad who is statistically miles better in his place, in place of him.
Who I don't believe either had a fair run out at it himself.
No. But then again, credit to Dimbo. I mean, he's plucked. I mean, I had a crack at trying to get Ortega. Again, he's another one of those. Ortega, couple of other lads there. He beat me to the punch. Getting through other clubs. And I mean, before you even had that 9 and a goal to Ortega, his numbers in his first 4 or 5 games, free scores were already phenomenal. So going into the end of the season with him playing the way he is obviously fantastic for him.
Next up, we go to Gazelles, who entertain White Rose this evening. Gazelles, from memory, didn't make any reserve changes either. There were quite a few teams who opted against it for the run-in, which was interesting. They do, however, make some personnel changes. They stick with the formation that they've now become known for, but Saviola returning to play behind Pizarro is the main shout.
Yeah, why not? I mean, Saviola, the argument again rubbles on. Can he play there? Does he have to go up front? I think it'd be quite nice to see Saviola alongside Pizarro. I mean, historically, Pizarro, the more strikers you get alongside Pizarro, seemingly the more he shines. You know, he plays okay as a 1, he plays pretty decent as a 2, but he plays fantastic in a 3.
Yep.
Saviola without an arrow in that proper AMC midfield role, you know, is an interesting one. He's obviously a class player. I mean, there's certain things that Dan's done this year you've got to give him credit for. I mean, not many managers have got a tune out of Rivaldo in the way that he has.
Yep.
The run that he got out of Nedved with all those 9s and 10s up in like a 4 or 5 week period was phenomenal.
Yep.
I look at what he's got available to him. I look at, I've had a Dealson in the Super League in the past, and he'll do it for a while and fall off. Liverani, I wouldn't give house room. So this is about all you can do, possibly with the exception of blooding Arca instead of Neville. But then Neville's done decent for him as well. So you've got to say,
certainly has. You've
got to say Dan's doing a good job.
Well, I don't think. Sorry, let me try and get that in some sort of logical linguistics sentence. I don't think you can argue with the job being done. I think they've, the fact they're sitting 4th, they're scoring goals. I mean, admittedly, they've got the fewest inside the current top 6, but they're not. It's not like they're not scoring the same amount as those challenging for the places. Defensive record isn't too bad if you consider. They've conceded quite a lot less than Fulchester, and Macca certainly knows how to defend. He will argue, I'm sure, he hasn't got the players for defending this year, but that all comes down to transfers, I suppose. But yeah, the fact Gazelles have put themselves well in with a shot, if they can maintain anything like the form they've had over the season thus far, and therefore you wouldn't bet against it because they've done it over 20 games. They're certainly in there to achieve a playoff place. Whether they've got enough about them to, if we were in the playoffs now, they'd probably be my most likely to go out at the first hurdle because I don't know if they've got enough.
Yeah,
but they've certainly proven as a squad they're capable.
Well, it's like you pointed out at the end. Was it at the end of the last episode or one before that? And when you look at like average ratings. Gazelles have got nobody that's sort of like challenging average ratings league tables because they're a team. They're a team of like guys who are just gelling. There's no individuals who are burning it up on their own.
As for Rose, they make 2 squad alterations. Poirier and Hargreaves get promoted up. Poirier makes the team for tonight's game. And a changing tactic again as well.
Yeah, there's a bit more matching up going on, dare I say. It's a compromise between kind of matching Gazelles up and kind of slightly moving away from that wall of 5. I mean, there's players there, especially with the arrows, who can threat. Season 1 Poirier can be absolutely fantastic, even at 34 years of age. Would have expected maybe a little bit more from him than we've had, but he hasn't really been given that chance. No place for Nicky tonight, which is fair enough, given that he is, as I think I mentioned last week, probably the biggest myth I've ever seen in Super League history. Although actually looking at him, it's not a bad Nicky. Numbers wise, you look at the centre backs. I mean, has anybody got a better centre back pairing than that? Not sure. Protected by the two, probably you don't need those two there. In all honesty, Button Vieira, that's like the definition of overkill there for me. Yeah, it's a fantastic team, and what they're doing, where they are, is I don't know, answers on a postcard.
Previous between these sides, just the one game between them so far. Rose winning 2-0. So having seen both lineups, then could I ask you for your score prediction, please?
Momentum tells me that Gazelles take this one 2-1.
Gazelles 2-1 is the prediction. As Saviola with an early opportunity to get one of those goals, fails to convert though. Seeing the home sides in the game so far starting quite quickly. Here come Rose building a bit of momentum themselves. Dede, Poirier will get involved. Well, that was a hard. People are suggesting in the chat that we're going a bit too long, Ian. So they'll be delighted with the absolute fuck all happening in that half.
Wow, is that the fact? That seems like one of the fastest first halves of a game since we played East Coast. Yeah, that was pretty shit, wasn't it?
There's really not much to discuss there, so let's have a quick look before people complain about the individual players. And you mentioned about Pizarro and Saviola playing up top as a 2. That they're just not really getting much to work off tonight, working how they are currently.
No, I mean, I think at home playing well against a team who aren't playing well, I might have been tempted to put an extra guy up there, or at least an arrow up there. I look at the bench, there's nothing really to go off. He's calling for that, is he? Or are you just doing that for illustration purposes?
No, he's actually called for his Saviola up front, please, as a 2.
I mean, ironically, it was kind of Steve who kind of showed, I think, Saviola alongside Tony what he can do as a 2 in this league. So that might be something that comes back to bite Steve a little bit.
As for again, it's not too dissimilar. It's the attacking players struggling. Poirier not grasping the opportunity back in the first team with both hands as of yet. Yeah,
there's nothing happening, is there? I mean, there's a few decent touches, but there's nothing. There's nothing there. I mean, it's just it's kind of dross, isn't it? But I mean, I know I slagged him off, Nicky, but I mean, do you bring him in to get something going? I mean, I know Hussein
try and do something.
Well, Hussein hasn't done much, but then I mean, Eb Sand up front as an FC on his own. Yeah, I was going to say it might be worth a hook, but he needs support for me.
What was the Badgers causing a score had to nip out? Coast ended up winning that one
2-0.
It wasn't 2-0. Yeah, I was going to say that wasn't the 4-2 game. So we've got Hussein coming on, and we've had Saviola join Pizarro as a front 2. So attacking changes by both sides. Let's see how that goes to 60. And it's the away side who started quickest this time. Oh, that looked like a good opportunity for White Rose. And Saviola this time with the opportunity. Both sides are starting to create and get through the defences as we reach the hour mark. 3 yellow cards for Gazelles at this stage. You mentioned the subs bench. Adilson, I mean, Liverani's a good player, but is he going to make a difference in this sort of game? Adilson has been a mainstay in the team, 15 starts and 3 sub appearances. He has got 4 goals and an assist. Could he prove a difference maker?
Yeah, I mean, I look at someone like Dalmat as maybe a luxury that you don't need in a home game against an underperforming away team. He might be one to make way if you want to stick an AMC in there, perhaps. I don't see a place for Liverani. I don't see a place for Vargas. So, I mean, they are controlling it, but there has been a bit of a sniff that White Rose are contributing to the game now. So maybe time to take the bull by the horns and go a bit more adventurous.
Well, just waiting for confirmation there's no personnel changes. So it looks like the only tactical tweak is the fullback, or the wing backs, I should say, are allowed to get a bit further forward.
Yeah, I mean, Mendieta, some people will say, obviously wasted at right wing back. Needs to be maybe a bit more central, a bit more involved. But it's a good compromise that you're getting him further forward, I guess. And we know what Adilson can do in isolated circumstances. So for me, Adilson for Dalmat might have been the one, but at least he's doing something.
Dan confirming that's all he wants to do. So we have a look at Rose. Again, you mentioned it at halftime, but is this an opportunity for Nicky Franco to come on and make a name for himself?
Yeah, I struggle with this lineup. I just think you got the 2 best centre backs partnership going, and they're being protected by 2 world class DMCs that you don't need. Then world class 2 DMCs are being protected by 3 MCs, and it all looks like overkill to me. If the amount of faith that he's put in Nicky this season, that he's stuck with him, and he made a massive deal to get him, stick him up there behind Hussein on his own, sacrifice Poyet, Cole, I don't know. But then again, he's a previous champion, so it doesn't need me to tell him.
In that exclusive club of former champions is Steve Wright, that is for sure. Just waiting on confirmation of any changes to the man himself. He has been replying to everything else, so I expect it to be quite quick. But yeah, I see what you mean, definitely. I know when the same sort of thing was labelled at you when you had, I think it was Keenan Vieira at the time initially, and then possibly one of them got swapped out and you ended up with Jeremy's from memory. But you then ultimately moved one of them into centre midfield and just had the one in DM.
Well, I very, very rarely, if ever, play 2 DMs in this league, which is why I always try and go for one strong guy in that role. So the debate for me, it was people always telling me that Vieira or Keane or Jeremy's should be playing MC or DMC, but never 2 of them alongside each other, protecting the centre-backs.
So the confirmation of the change then, Nicky Butt coming off for Nicky Franco, who will then go and play behind Hussein. The arrow coming off Guerrero, and Vieira now marshalling that area himself.
Yeah, it looks better. That's kind of what I was crying out for, but it'll probably... you got half an hour to make it work, so it's up in the air, isn't it?
Well, let's find out. Yes, I've done the hour on Nicky. I saw that as well. Well, Rose certainly look a bit more positive at this stage. 15 to go plus injury time. They're getting balls into the box now. Poyet, Nicky Ferenco, Cole's offside though. Di Biagio sets a Saviola. They manages to pick up the rebound and they withhold pressure. Lucio, Samuel Vieira, foul given, yellow card Free kick to Rose. And they fire it long to Rose. And nearly score from it. Barthez with a fine save. Guerrero steps up. Samuel with a header, another fine save from Barthez. So we're going to the final 10 into the final 5. Mon the Rose come the cries from Fulchester. Heading towards injury time, Nedved comes forward. Lucio blocks, DiBiasio, Samuel now in the way. And Ilianos has scored! And Gazelles in injury time. But it's not over Poirier. Still Poirier doing it all himself. Dede. Poirier. Barthez with a save. Out for a corner. Guerrero. Poirier himself with a header. Hussein. How is Barthez saving all of this? Barthez was like a man possessed. And the full-time whistle goes. Gazelles with a huge 3 points. And if I don't see Barthez name lit up as man of the match there, I don't know what's happened. Look at the attempts from Rose.
They came to the party, didn't they? They finally decided last half hour we're gonna play, and let's have a look at him. Man of the match. Sure.
Tato saying the fucking late night Gazelles again. Asna, good evening. It's just saying Sickner. Dan saying Barthez, you star. Are Rose the lowest scorers in the league, Fifey? I will check that in a second. And then Steve just fuck that play done. Steve with lots of exclamation marks comes Hodgie. If I just click on league table quickly, joint lowest scorers with Asta who are yet to play.
Wow. That is low. 16 off 21. Wow.
16 is even when me and you had teams at the bottom of the table, we had better goal scoring records than that.
Yeah, I mean the scary thing there is that you're conceding more than twice what you're scoring. It's not just we see sometimes you can have a very, very low scoring team, and that's so outweighed. And you're right there, Barthez. Wow,
look at Barthez! What a performance by the man.
White Rose, they finally decided to play, didn't they? And they thought we're not going to pack it at the back. We're going to move everyone forward a bit, because the players behind there can look after themselves, but they just left it too late. I personally, for me, I know it sounds like a broken record. I think if they'd have started with the team they finished with, I think they'd have been all right.
Mac is saying manager of the year, though, so you're up against it. Some criticism sort of matching what you were saying, coming from other lookers on. Towards the tactics, I saw they're almost like playing 5 DMs stops you from scoring. Another one coming in hard to score goals when you play 10 at the back. So maybe Steve needs to be a bit more adventurous, because you've suggested that there's more than an outside chance that Asta get a result against Fulchester, and then suddenly there is 1, if not 2 points between the two sides going into the final few games.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just that. It's like if you do set out that defensively and you concede, where do you go?
So aside from the Barthez putting in an absolute monster performance, it looks solid throughout, really, doesn't it? Although Saviola still, he had a 6 at half-time in AM. He's still got a 6 playing a striker. Do we think it's just maybe the instructions on him aren't designed to get the best out of him?
I just think he needs probably a run of games. And I think Dan needs to kind of decide what he wants from him. You might have to play 3 games maybe with him alongside Pizarro, and he might score 1 and set 1 up in the 3rd game and then kick on from there. I don't know.
As for Rose, I mean, it's not like their goalkeeper hadn't put in a shift himself. Joe Cole, is that Joe Cole? Sorry, no. Sand, you mentioned at half-time, just maybe not up to it as the lone striker.
Yeah, I mean, he's not technically a striker, is he? He's obviously forward centre. I know a lot of us sometimes look at a forward centre as you can maybe play AM, you can maybe play up front. For me, an FC is one of 2 up front, or he plays behind. Wouldn't for me, probably not a goal getter up there on his own. Although, certain Mr. Joe Palmer might disagree with us, having had numbers in the past up front on his own at times. But I think we're looking at a lot of 7s and 8s there that have probably been garnered from the last half hour of the match. If he hadn't ended the match as he did, we'd have seen a lot more 6s. Just a shame he left it too late.
Right, next, let's go to Haggis against Celtics. Now, Greavesy wants us to move things along, so I think all we do here is flash his team up on the pitch, show that he's made changes, although it's the same tactic. We point out that Takinardi and Gravison have been called up to the first team in place of Paolo Sergio and Redondo, and then we just skip that completely and go to Haggis.
I'll go one further and say that if they get an 8 or a 9 for Zialeus, they've got a chance of winning. If they don't win.
Lovely. As for Haggis, Scholes moves out of centre midfield and goes up into the AM position to play behind him and as Rossini. Figo dropping to the bench. Simeone coming into centre midfield. Other than that, it's pretty much as was, including for the first time this season, no reserve swaps that I can remember.
From what? From him or from anyone?
From Haggis in this occasion.
Yeah, just two things that I find strange with Haggis. Shearer, fantastic start to the season, then he completely discarded, and his total disregard for Okoronkwo. Anybody but Okoronkwo plays at the back. Those are the things that kind of baffle me about this. Everything else looks spot on.
Previously, between these sides this season, just the one game, and it finished 2 apiece. Wonder if we'll get any sort of excitement like that this time round. And if I remember rightly, Mikhail Vikia came from Bern, and he didn't make any appearances since you drafted him, but he's had a good start to life at Haggis.
Yeah, I didn't want to lose him, but it got to the point where I'd had Contra, Emerton, Zauri all down the right-hand side, and he probably wasn't getting a sniff, so I brought an MC in who I think everyone needs to probably keep an eye out for next season.
Let's. Can I ask you then, please, as we get to Match Centre, for a prediction, please?
I'm again sound like a broken record, but I think home win by
2 goals.
Yeah, can't see anything else.
Let's see if you're right. And it's the away side in this occasion start the quickest. Greavesy has got his side up for this, that's for sure. Strong opening sort of 10 minutes for them. And still they come forward in waves, putting the defensive capabilities of the defending champions to the test. Shevchenko off of Beckham. Zialeus goes in the book. Unlucky to miss, says the commentary text. That's a very strong opening 20-25 minutes for Celtics. Haggis now starting to play their way back into this.
Yeah, but he needed a goal there, didn't he?
And there's Jimenez on 38 minutes opening the scoring for the home side. 4 minutes to be added on. Davids goes in the book. And there's a yellow for Simeone. This has got a red card written all over it, this game, I think, Ian.
Yeah, but it's another one of them. I mean, Tortuga must look at that and think like that perceived dominance. You want a goal in amongst all that, and they've come up. They've banged at the door. And they've got nothing, and you know what's coming next. Once that happens, tackles one Haggis are massively on top, even more on top in the air if you believe in that sort of thing.
Yep,
they look. It doesn't look comfortable, but it looks like they're keeping him at arm's length.
Let's have a look at the home side first. And I can see there's some talk about Woodgate in the chat. He's actually, since coming in, this is only a third appearance, but he's been solid next to Ferdinand.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can't argue with this thing about he'll play anybody except Okoronkwo, except for the fact that he seems reluctant to let Okoronkwo go. But yeah, Woodgate looks class. Ferdinand, You know, I mean, he will throw the odd stinker in, but he's been decent. Michelini's been like a revelation this season. Giggs for Z Roberto was a little bit like my contra for Emerton deal. You just bring in somebody in that you're a bit more comfortable with, that you know is going to do a particular job for you. And I know he loves the likes of Scholes. Yeah, it looks like he's got all these lads exactly where he wants them, and they're just doing what he wants them to do.
And as for Celtics, I can see that there's a... Well, you said your one comment on Celtics was if they get a high rating out of Zayas, they've got a chance. He's got a 5 at halftime.
Yeah, and he's put 7 tackles in. He's won 2 of them. None have been key. So he's kind of fighting against the tide, you know, because, I mean, Davids isn't really giving him much help, much protection in front of him. You would think that Zayas, Gattuso, Davids triangle would be absolutely
monstrous.
Exactly. Dominant, you know, to the extreme. Protecting 2 fantastic centre-backs. So, I mean, that's spot. I mean, Vrede, Maldini, Zayas, Davids, Gattuso, Raul, Shevchenko, Taibbi is like, you know, spine-wise, as good as it gets in this league. But the numbers aren't there.
Kovacevic coming on for Morientes at halftime.
Okay. I know he's pretty happy with the Morientes deal, wasn't he? But yeah, he's not done a great deal for him. So maybe run out of patience already. He doesn't make his mind up quite quickly, Greaves, doesn't he?
And there's Shevchenko levelling things up very quickly. Haggis, though, regained the lead through Rossini. What a start to the second half. And here come Haggis again. And then Celtics on the counter. and a spate of chances for the away side. But again, they just cannot force the ball over the line. Wood has asked, what are you eating? Is this still the pretzels?
Yeah, I'm still on the pretzels. Yeah, I have... Christmas for me starts like at the beginning of December, so I'm eating all sorts of shite from... I finished work like over a week ago, so I've just been eating and drinking shite. Yeah. So, yeah, eating shite, drinking shite.
Feeling festive.
Watching shite.
Well, yeah, your game hasn't even come on yet. Looking at the bench, would you be making any changes, or given that Celtics are, you know, they're very much still in the conversation of this game, or being 2-1 up, would you be quite content at the moment?
Well, they conceded 1, but at least 2 or 3 of those players have gone up a rating. So they're actually, as over the piece, they're actually as a team statistically improving. So I believe in it as is personally.
Okay, and Ian is as well. Let's have a look at Celtics. They're still on a 5. I would probably be considered pulling him at this stage.
For who, though?
Well, so the problem here is he's obviously a very good player, but you have got other players there capable of doing that position. So I would maybe even consider dropping Gattuso back there and bringing on Carlucca.
You look at Gattuso and Davids, who are walking reds. If you drop either of them back into the pressure cooker of DMC, I think you'd out 10 men. I think you go with what you've set out. For me, I mean, the Carioca thing is like, Carioca's, for me, he's a good season, hasn't he? Marcelino Carioca, is he not?
Yeah,
he's
certainly been involved.
So, I mean, for me, he'd be involved somewhere. He'd be the change I'd be looking at, perhaps, as opposed to messing with Zayas.
While I confirm this substitution, just to let you know, in the chat, there is Loving the Beard Edwards, 10 out of 10. Very Amish. Can imagine Edwards pulling a plough. Everyone discussing the beard.
Yeah. Number 7 on the beard, number 1 on the tash. So nearly gone. my 7 wives will attest to.
So it is kind of what we suggested. I thought it might be Gattuso because he wasn't on the yellow card that dropped back, but it is actually David's moving back there.
Yeah, he's took like a mangled version of our advice and made it his own, hasn't he?
He certainly has. Dimble saying he's milked the ball for you.
He's what?
Milked the bull.
Right. I need access to the chat, really, don't
I? Okay, let's resume the action then. On the hour, still 2-1 to Haggis. And let's see. Kovacevic almost leveling things up again. Substitute goes in the book. Sure, Gatos getting involved. Kovacevic saved by Vesterveld. Beckham floats in the corner, but Ferdinand knocks it away. Final 15 now. Ferdinand, Woodgate. Oh, I thought he'd already been booked. I'm sure I've seen he'd already been booked. I thought the sub had been sent off. 10 minutes goes by with nothing happening.
Jerry Connolly's dropped a ball.
Into injury time. Are Haggis going to beat Celtics again? Rossini, Mikardovicchia, Giggs, Jimenez! Saved by Taibbi. Shevchenko, Raul on the counter. Kovacevic. Shevchenko. Free kick awarded. Beckham lines it up. Rossini flicks it clear. Jimenez now going on the counter himself. Still Jimenez. Taibbi with a save. Ferdinand with a throw in. Giggs. And it's 3-1. Rossini in injury time has wrapped it up. And all of the teams in and around that 6th position all picking up points tonight.
Yeah, and these late goals keep coming in for my 2 clear goal predictions, don't they? But again, I bet I didn't give Swan 3-1, but I'm taking it tonight. Yeah, I'm sure Ian won't be unbearable in the chat tomorrow, will he?
All my days, says Rox. That will do, says Haggis. Supplied by 2-headed beasts up top, supplied by Giggs class. Rossini, what a player, says Mike. Greavesy there, very sportingly well played, Grandad.
Yeah, congratulations. Welcome to the old bastards club, Ian, by the way. Yeah.
Yes, we should indeed send our congratulations to the entire Campbell family. Entertaining game, both sides creating chances. Celtics very wasteful with theirs. Only 50% of the attempts were actually on target. Whereas you would actually argue Haggis were wasteful in the sense of they had 11 shots, 11 on target, and only managed to score 3.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you go by the numbers, sometimes you go by the text. It always felt like Haggis were well on top. And I mean, you've got 2 sevens, one's your keeper. Yes, he might be the greatest keeper ever to have played the game.
He's, without question, the greatest keeper in Super League history, Sander Westerveld, all of a sudden.
And then you've got one of your DMs has got like a 7 because he's had a booking, and then everyone else is absolutely played out of the skin. There was
lots of
probably, as it's played out, it was probably one result tonight that was never really in question, despite Celtics having 12 shots sprayed around the penalty area somewhere.
Lots and lots of 9s within there, within the ratings there. The one that jumps out to me because of the chat pre-match is Jonathan Woodgate continuing to impress.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, a 9 suggests that he's had a lot to do. So 7 tackles, he's made 3 key tackles. So yeah, fair enough. It's probably not as comfortable as perhaps I'm making out for Haggis.
As for Celtics, as Greavesy just puts, if I didn't have Massimo, I would have lost 10-1. Taibbi continuing to do his best. Raiders weren't terrible. Say Elias was the letdown with 5. As we seem to say a lot, they're attacking players where between that trio, it's usually Shevchenko, Morientes, and Raul. There's usually 1, if not 2, that are rating lower than the other. And that's the case again today with Raul ending on a 6 and Shevchenko on the 7.
Yeah, and you chat to Greavesy and like about his team and about who's available, who's not available, and Raul's always the one who is his guy. and he seems to be the one who's kind of not turned up tonight. Is his captain? Is the lower rating? Apart from obviously ZLA, as we discussed.
Mm-hmm.
But when you are going to go, and I think this probably stems from a fear of my match tonight, which we'll come on to later on. You know, when you go away from home with that one DM against a team who are playing well, that one DM is absolutely crucial that he has a 7 or an 8. Because if he doesn't, you're probably knackered.
Well, congratulations to Haggis on tonight's victory. Next, we go to Dragons at home to Triple P. Triple P without the injured Zidane, without the injured Romario, the suspended George Costa. I'm just having a quick look. I don't believe they made any reserve swaps, but they have made a tactical tweak. Instead of the 3 up top, they've dropped the 2 back again. That's his D'Alessandro come back in, Emerson back in the starting lineup as well for this one, with Kufre coming in at the back.
Yeah, it's a lovely formation. It's a lovely tactic. It's heartwarming to see so many reverting to this tactic over the last few weeks. It's a good one. It's worked well. It's won the Super League before. The one thing I would say with Triple P is rarely have I ever seen at this stage of a season a squad or a team on the beach for their holidays so early in a season. Luckily for them, it's not Askham Beach.
Roy Mackay continuing to be an influential member of their squad, and you do get the feeling that any success they have will come through him. Crespo being called out in the media in the week. I believe it was an ex-manager saying that he doesn't see where Crespo fits in to this squad.
Well, if you look at that deal, Crespo for Mpenza, and you look at Crespo's numbers and Mpenza's numbers since that deal's been made, it's chalk and cheese. It's night and day. Horrendous.
Dimble saying that team looks good. I'm confused. Well, this is what I've been saying all season, pal. This team should not be where it is. But then every squad in this league is good. So I suppose someone has to be down there, don't they?
Well, regardless of transfer windows, at this stage of a season, you can't nobody can put a bad 11 out.
No. Gerrard returns to the Dragons lineup. Other than that, from memory, unchanged again. Dragons, one of those sides who didn't make any reserve alterations. So the run they're on at the moment, they seem quite happy and quite content to see it through to the end of the season now.
Identical tactic. It's a lovely one. It's worked well for them since they switched to it. In chats in private with Duggan, I only ever sort of disagreed with one selection that they were making. They corrected that, and the guy that they brought in is absolutely on fire. I look at that. They've got the best 11 players out on the pitch, and there's probably 2 guys that I would tweak and swap positions with. And other than that, I think
Keane and Gerrard.
Yeah, I think swap Keane and Gerrard, and it is head and shoulders the best 11 in the Super League.
Wow, that is a statement. Last time these two sides met, was this the penalties one? Yeah, it's all the red cards for Dragons.
Yeah,
absolute madness. I remember this one well. Let's see if we get anything close to the same this time around. Rob's already stuck his prediction in, say Dragons win 4-0. But what are you saying, Mr. Edwards?
Dragons 4-0 sounds good to me.
Dragons 4-0. Let's see if that is to be the case. And very, very early chance there for Dragons. But here come the away side. That's fucking awful away kit. But at least it's Reed. Whoa, there's Crespo.
I like the away kit's lovely. It's the home kit that's a shocker.
And do you know what? Triple P aren't being outplayed at all here. They're giving as good as they get. And there's the equaliser. It was coming. It was Roy, and it's Roy Keane on 32. But almost instantly take the lead again, do Triple P. couple of set pieces, one that goes over the bar.
Good
And
half.
there is half time. Not a bad half at all, although the attempt numbers might be slightly lower than you anticipated.
But where's this Pyongyang been all season? They look like they've got some fight about them, don't they?
They certainly do. They certainly do. You've been mentioning that you're not too fussed about the heading stats, or which Triple P are currently winning. Passing looks very equal. Tackles won, both over the 50%, but Dragons just shading it.
Yeah, Dragons kind of got a bit of a foothold in the game, didn't they? It was all seemed to be Triple P for the first half hour, but the quality has started to come through, hasn't it, I think?
And talking of the quality, the high ratings, the 3 8s within them, falling to Roy Keane, Ronaldinho, and Lee Bowyer. So it's one of those midfield triangles that are doing the business for them.
Yeah, I mentioned that I would probably rather see Roy Keane sitting deeper, but he's the one who's gone forward and got the goal, so I can't argue with that. He's got 2 shots on target. In fact, apart from the striker, he's the only one to have a shot on target. So I can't. Yeah, I mean, I got a stand corrected there, but I mean, they're great, amazing players, aren't they? I mean, it's just what. It's kind of just what setup you put them all in, how you accommodate them all. You know, I mean, the danger for PPP here is you've got like the highest average rating guy in the entire league sat on a 6. So if Dragons do get their wide men clicking, then PPP could be in trouble.
Dragons going as is. So let's have a quick look at Triple P. And you know what? The ratings they look all right. You know, you've got a team banging form against a team struggling down the bottom, but it's not appearing that way on the pitch currently.
They're doing well, aren't they? I mean, the text felt decent. They got the early goal. You know, everyone seems to be playing all right. I mean, the thing is for them, they've got a pretty shoddy bench. So this 11 that they've set out, probably you want them to complete the 90 minutes, really. So you can hope in the next 20 minutes of the second half goes well.
Arrows further forward on the DML and DMR is the only instruction. So they are going to go for it.
Right, okay.
Let's see how that works up until the hour mark. And Dragons almost instantly from kickoff take the lead, but Triple P hang on. And they retake the lead. And it's the man that I mentioned at the beginning, Roy Mackay. Gets their second goal of the night. But again, Dragons spurred on. Although they are leaving little gaps for Triple P to still be threatening. Back getting involved. And then all the 60 minutes tick by with nothing. So we paused the game on 71. Wow. 20 minutes to go. And Triple P are in the lead, Ian.
And Cafu jumps from a 6 to an 8. Keane from an 8 to a 9.
So you're wondering kind of how it's happening, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I guess Nesta again not having an awful lot to do because he seems throwing a 6 every single week. And it's that marquee striker that this, you know, this does remind me an awful lot of my old BTEC days where 1 to 10 offsets, like 10 players were fantastic, and then you're lacking that marquee striker. But Constantinu's had a very good season as well. So again, bench wise, where do you go? Because Simkoviak's decent, but is he better than what's already out there? I don't know.
So this is what they're doing. Vasilyuk on for Constantinu.
Okay.
And longer arrows on the wing backs, AM line, but straight.
So they're matching back up again. Right.
And then Sakomiak coming on for back as well.
Okay.
So Dragons have reacted with a double change.
Yeah, why not? I mean, you know, we started off matching up. PPP took that little tweak, and now Dragons are matching them back up again. I don't think there's anywhere for PPP to go. It must be as is.
In terms of personnel changes?
In terms of everything, I mean, why rock the boat when you're sort of like hanging on in a great position against such a good team?
Only the one player, Everson, on the yellow card. No real fitness concerns either, so I'd be tempted to stick as is in this situation.
Absolutely. I'd almost be tempted to put those wing back arrows back to being little again.
Back to little arrows, yeah.
It's a backward step in it, and
is that inviting the pressure on?
Exactly.
Rob going as is.
Yeah, it's got to be.
So let's resume the action with 20 to play. Dragons have reacted. Can they get themselves back into it? Now into the final 15. Not a lot happening as we go into the final 10 and the final 5. Candeas comes forward. Jinks past Gerard. Goal kick though. 3 minutes have been added on. Wellens. Gerard gets there now. Cafu. Fingertip save, and it goes out for a corner. Which Pagliuca then gets the save from the corner as well. Vasilyuk goes down, free kick awarded. Ronaldinho deflects off the wall. And there's the final whistle, and the run comes to an end. It stops at home, and it is Triple P that end Dragons' winning run. Oh my goodness, says Maka.
I mean, it's got something like that's got to come to an end at some point, but it's kind of fitting that it comes to an end while you're still playing well and still deserve something out of the game. It's not because they've turned up and they've been shit. They probably still should have won the match or at least drawn the match. So
Rob reacting in his traditional classy way to that.
Yeah. Rob, the guy who cracked open a bottle of champagne with 20 minutes to go on a victory and then conceded 2 goals to lose a match. Classic.
Let's have a look at the Dragons specifically. Roy Keane getting man of the match, 10 out of 10 performance for him. Skomiak didn't really have that much of an impact off the bench. Some decent performances throughout, particularly from Cafu. No one's really let Dragons down tonight, have they?
It's just that marquee striker situation, isn't it? I mean, as I say, Constantine's had a good season. He's scored a lot of goals, but he's not top 5, top 6 strikers in the league. If you look down those numbers on the right-hand side at the start of the night and don't show the score,
yeah,
Duggan's looking at that thinking we've probably won 2 or 3-0. Let's move on. We're happy with that. He won't believe that he's lost that game. Man of the match to Roy Keane, who, as I mentioned earlier, I think is fantastic at centre mid.
Yeah,
he's completely in his correct position. Cafu's gone from a 6 to an 8 to a 9. So I mean, crikey, the 3 Dragons are not going to be worried in the slightest. But you have to say, well done, Rob. He's come into a lot of grief recently. He's not been at the best run, but he's looked at that. He's obviously thought, these are my best 11 guys. Yep. Let's put them in the right place. And it's worked for him. Well done.
Certainly has. We've now got Triple P stats on the screen. Pagliuca, bless you, rating a 9, as was his teammate Candea. It's actually Richie Wellens, of all people, who struggled a little bit tonight.
Yeah, which won't come as any consolation to Doug and Willett at all.
No.
Great numbers all over the shop.
Great numbers, but congratulations, Triple P, who continue to move away from danger at the bottom of the league. Next, and our penultimate fixture, we've got the debut for Alfred Bridge. He has submitted his new 24 through the reserve swaps, as he would be allowed to anyway as a new manager. And he has brought in the Maka Waka tactic for tonight.
Is that how we spell him, Waka, these days? What is going on there?
Apparently so, yeah.
Wow. And as a as a typesetter of 20 years, that double space between season 12 and is really annoying me. There's a couple of guys in there who shouldn't be anywhere near
the Super League, never mind a starting lineup.
I mean, the thing is, like, you can probably a combination of if you're playing two DMs, you can get any combination of two to work. But Gianni, Cheddar, and Voigt in there,
not feeling it.
I mean, I'm going to stick my neck out and say that Ndai is suspended. Because why would he not be in this team?
He's got a slight injury.
Slight injury, fair enough. I think Ramos is unlucky not to be in there. Pauve is unlucky not to be in there ahead of them too. But new manager bounce, 2-1 victory in the bag. Happy days.
Up the sexy Astor boys, says Ryan. The new Alf is going to win the lot. No Seedorf tonight, no Yap Stam. Saha, who's been called up from the reserves, also unfit to play tonight. So it's the usual formation and pretty much the usual players.
Yeah, I think Stam and Seedorf are a miss, but West's had an okay season. Nakata has outshone Seedorf already, so perhaps not as much of a miss as I'm making it out to be, given that Sean Davis is an able deputy. Is Ambrosini one of those who can play that role on his own? Some will say yes. I'm not too sure. I'd like to see a DM maybe averaging, 4.5, 5 tackles a game to be playing that role on his own. But it's very strong. Sometimes, I mean, I don't know whether like Maka thinks, well, let's see which Abiati turns up as to whether we're going to, win the game, lose the game. But for me, Andre plays every time out of those two anyway.
Slightly surprised that Michael Owen hasn't found his way back to the bench.
Well, that's the one place where they've got an embarrassment of riches, isn't it? I mean, doesn't matter what Vieri does for Maka, Vieri plays. Batistuta in season 1 is obviously fantastic, and he has banged a couple of goals in. Yeah, maybe Owen's plateaued a bit in the last few weeks. Goals and assists have been good, but I don't honestly know how much he's done in the last couple of weeks. And Carew looks really this season's Carew already looks really good. He's worth a place on the bench.
Apologies for that. The cat got involved.
No worries, mate. I'll be in center of attention, mate.
There we go. We're back. And he is going in the kitchen. Sorry, I missed the end of that final point you were making before I moved on.
I think I was just pointing out that Carew was probably worth his place on the bench, given that he just seems to be very, very well developed, and I think anyone in the league would be happy to have him. He hasn't really been given the chance. So I know Mac is not mega happy with his squad, but if you are going to play 2 up front, you've got 4 class guys there. And given the extra bonus that he's managed to squeeze so much out of Riquelme and Enrique to feed those guys, and Nakata has worked out as being a great signing for him as well. I know he bemoans the transfer system, and he bemoans certain characters that end up in his DMs, but he seems to have actually worked quite well in that area this season.
So just seeing what's going on in the chat, we've got big screen Edwards. Rock saying got a soft spot for Voigt, can be very decent. Ryan suggesting Maka has accidentally rolled again, thinking Owen was still injured. Dimble saying pretzel watch. I'll see as I left the screen for a moment. The other Ian saying noisy eaters need hit in the face with a metal pole.
Crikey. If Ian is complaining at the background noise from one of my then the lad needs to give his head a wobble.
Let's move on then. So, are we going to see the new manager bounce, and is Maka going to be raging, Ian?
Got 2-1 written all over it. Home win. Come on, the Astor.
2-1 home win. Come on, the Astor. Absolutely nothing happened in the first 10 minutes. Voigt goes in the book. Opportunity for Fulchester not converted. Luis Enrique getting involved and having more influence on the game. Janacheda goes in the book. Half an hour played. Butt saves a pot shot. Alex Batistuta, Vieri all getting involved. As Astor tried to come forward through Ferguson. Possibly last chance of the half this. And Fulchester take the lead. Always be disallowed. Luis Enrique offside. So 0-0 at half time, Ian.
Doesn't look great for Astor, does it? Watching that, if you hadn't known that Alf had been sacked and Ralph Fridge had been brought in, you would have no clue. Yeah. In the words of Loyal Kana, ain't nothing changed.
Let's have a look then at Astor. Pretty dependent, there's nothing spectacular there, but it's not bad ratings at all in the slightest.
It's just flat again, though, isn't it? It's 6s, 7s every week. Luckily, for Voigt, he's on a 6, but Rox has got a soft spot for him, so he may come good.
Ryan suggesting that Maka is currently going mental on their shared call. Let's have a look at the Fulchester stats then, while Alf decides what changes he might want to make. Again, ratings not too dissimilar. Vieri is trying his best, and Ambrosini the only player rating below a 7.
Looks all right, doesn't it? I mean, if you hadn't had that disallowed goal, you'd be saying everything looks sweet. 1-0, 7s, 8s. Everyone making the tackles. Everyone getting on the ball. Enrique, shots on target. Vieri, shots on target. It looks all right. Bide your time. Hope you don't get that sucker punch. What's he doing?
So Voigt on the yellow card is coming off for Perez, who joins Ferguson in midfield. Janacheda goes holding midfield on his own and extending the arrows on the wing backs.
Right, he's going for it. I like it.
Just another one playing your formation.
Yeah, it's the way forward, isn't it? I mean, if you can't beat them, join them. Which I'm not charging for it.
Maka says to roll again. And then Maka did actually comment to roll again as well. So let's resume the action. This is the penultimate fixture of tonight. Go to 60. Fulchester through Enrique take the lead. And nearly an instant reply from Astor. And so just over the hour mark, and it is 1-0 to the away team, Ian. Not a lot of action since half-time, though.
No. Again, it's like, it feels like the same Astor, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. There's not an awful lot happening.
Would you be, I know you're not one for changes, but seeing what does sometimes work in the Super League, would you be looking at this now in this situation and think, do something ballsy like move Brujik forward, put Perez wide maybe, and bring Viduka on for Sorin and go free up top? Just try something a bit different?
I mean, the one thing with Inzaghi, up front on his own, he'll get you goals. If you put someone up with him, he's the one who's going to get the assists, I always find. And I know that Alf likes Brugink as well to chip in. For me, Robin seems like the odd one out. If you're going to do something, maybe it's Viduka for Robin, stick 2 up top, Ruggen King in behind.
Possibly.
Yeah. But
Possibly even Robin out wide. Robin out wide.
You can't, apart from that glaring thing about Gianni Cheddar as a sole DM, but then again, you're at home. You should be able to hold your own on that score. He shouldn't be an issue.
Alf is just saying okay, so he's going to carry on. He has faith in this team.
Okay.
As for Fulchester, no one on bookings, no obvious fitness concerns either, and no real no one rating below a 7. So this is surely an as is as well.
It has to be, doesn't it? And if it wasn't for the disallowed goal, you're 2-0 up. You're absolutely coasting. Anything if you end this game anything other than winning, it's just probably that bad luck.
Alf's changed his mind and wants to alter the arrows back on his wing backs.
Okay.
Which surprises me given that they're chasing it.
Yeah, I mean, I would have understood it first time round, but doing it at this stage is a backward step, isn't it?
Macca saying as is.
Yeah, I think that's right there.
He says Owen back next game. He's actually available for tonight, but you didn't pick him. Ian downplaying Robin for future transfer talks is criminal, says Steve Wright.
No, I've been there, done that. Robin never pulled up no trees for me.
Right, okay, no. So I've misinterpreted Alf's message. He wants them to halfway with the little arrow.
Right, matching up. Okay.
I'll check my pack properly this week, says Macca. Noted that as well. Robin to burn incoming, suggests Dimble. Let's see if the change works for Asta. Well, another 10 minutes went by with not much happening. Enrique picks up the ball. Vieri, but with another save. Kwame steps up, drifts it in. Perez gets it clear. Into the final, or not quite, but approaching the final 10. Alex, Vieri, Batistuta, but with another save. Corner kick, which requires Vieri. And Perez gets in the way. But I think you're right, Ian. I think this looks like same old Asta as Ferguson comes forward. Robin with a shot. And now Brugink, Materazzi. Abbiati with a save. Another corner. Full Fisher holds it up. Didn't tell us how long was actually in because Brugink took the corner. But we're into the injury time. Do Asta have one more chance in them? No. It was pretty limp in the end, wasn't it, from the home side?
Yeah, it was flaccid, wasn't it? I've got to say, though, it was a tricky one for Macca. He's done well there because it just you always dread that bounce and, the change of fortunes. It was a massively tricky one for him. And to be honest, all joking aside, Fulchester never actually looked threatened at all. It was just another day at the office for him on it.
So here's the thing. Asta went into the season as favourites based purely on squad, and I've been very critical of Triple P as well. I know Rose is sandwiched in between, but I didn't particularly rate Steve's squad. Me personally, I would love a go with Triple P or Asta because there is no way they should be this poor.
No. I was one of the few managers to actually put a proper full predictions list out at the start of the season. And this is how I will measure who I think is manager of the year. So I go 1 to 14, who I think it'll be. Then you've got 1 to 14, who it actually ends up being. Now, I had Aston nailed on top 4. So they are a minus 11, 12 performance for me. It's a massive failure. And what would worry me there is that, you would hope for some green shoots there. You'd hope, to me, that limp performance, regardless of your next transfer window, that's what you're going into game 1, game 2 next season already. And that bothers me. I don't see how you turn that around when you've got Ferguson doing nothing, Robin doing nothing. And Dye is decent. He's doing well for him, but he should be doing a lot better than he is.
Alf suggesting I've tried everything. It's been successful in the past. The game is against him.
Well, I don't know, because I've been there on both ends of it. I've been doing shit and I've turned it around. I've been doing great, and then the game has just decided that it's not. I'm not having it. So I've been on both ends. So I know you can turn it around, because I've gone from like rock bottom by a mile to mid-table, and you know, before the end of a season's out, you're looking like you don't want the season to end. But there's nothing about Astor this season that suggests to me that that squad of players is what's going to fix it for him next season.
Dimble suggesting Fifey to Astor, Alf to Chair next season.
Oh, he'd look like that.
Could all click for the next season, says Tato. Let's have a look at the victorious Fulchester side. And it was the incoming Taribo West that got man of the match. Vieri, one of his... ironic given the lack of goal from him, but one of his better all-round performances tonight.
Good, just good all the way. I mean, you know, I think the only time I remember Enrique actually did anything in this league, I had him doing really, really average numbers to the point where you're not even... He's on the bench because he can play right, left, centre. You've got to say with Maka there... I mean, I know the big talk is about Riquelme and about Riquelme's numbers, but is that Enrique's something like, I don't know, 11th goal or something stupid like that?
So
I mean,
that'll be his 12th goal and 2 assists this season.
You know, and you know, for a non-striker and a non-Super League legend to be doing that is phenomenal. I look at him and I just think, yeah, whap him on the bench because he covers loads of positions. Macca's looked at him and thought he can do a job, and he's given whatever set of instructions, and he's absolutely set the league on fire. Fantastic.
Dimble pointing out another Nakata assist as well.
Well, he came in as a 2-for-1, did he? Was that in the Ballack deal? Did someone go the other way and it was a 2-for-1? It's worked out.
I can't remember. You guys do so many transfers these days. I can't remember who signs who for who.
Fantastic. Yeah. If he honestly, all he needs to do now is get Fiore in there, partner him up with Fiore, and he could be top 2.
So that brings us to the final game of tonight. Vikings at home to Bern, and let's see if I can do this from memory. So Coast won, Dragons lost, Gazelles won, Fulchester won, Haggis won, Casuals won, Celtics lost. So bad night for Dragons, bad night for Celtics. Pressure now very much, probably more on Vikings, but still a little bit on yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at 41 points for top 6, I think we're probably not far off. But our form is not good. So we've not won in 4. We do. I know Jens always points out we do well against Vikings, but different iterations, so it doesn't mean anything. He's got Totti back. He's got that 2 in this. I think he looks better with that solid 2 in MC. And we're on the slide, absolutely no question about it. And you rip Jens Jeremy's out of our team, and we're not blessed with, you know, loads of great players. We've like anyone else, we've got a good 11, but you start to pick off your your best players, and it takes no time at all for you to start looking a bit weaker. So, yeah, not mega confident coming into tonight's game, in all honesty.
I've just seen a comment from Alf in the chat that he thinks Ferguson is his problem because he's the one that's been played all season. That tells me everything I need to know.
Well, Ferguson's just been very flat for him, hasn't he? It's not... Ferguson's done okay for everyone else's standards, but he hasn't done okay for Ferguson's standards. So it's up to Alf to get Ferguson doing what Ferguson can do.
Let's spend a little bit of time looking at the Vikings team then. So Mpenza continues to be partnered by Smith Vetsbury, and behind Totti comes back into the midfield. Last time out, it was Walker and Van Bommel. Van Bommel doesn't even make the squad this time round. You'll notice also it's Anti-Corruption Task Force 2 formation this time. Desai continues to play in front of Gamara and Captain Cannavaro.
Yeah, bothers me a lot, this. I mean, he's got some good form out of Exeter. He got the better end of the numbers-wise out of the Mpenza Crespo deal. Smith starting to look really good. Walker enjoying a bit of company at MC. This week, it's Totti, and Totti just, he won't always give you 9s and 10s or whatever, but he will give you contributions to match winning 11s. If you've been ultra critical, I mean, they've done great business, and no doubt the 11 that they got now that they've settled on a decent keeper, Costanzo, their best keeper by a mile, and the numbers show it. They've tinkered in the left hand side. If you're being ultra critical, who plays down the left? But I was mentioning to you earlier when my measurement of like where I expect someone to be in the 40s, where they end up being. Jens is up there because, Jens drew squad number 14 for me in the draft. So anything above, and if he doesn't finish 14, anything's a bonus, and it just so happens that he's competing for top 6. So fantastic performance.
Manager of the Year contender. So, as is customary, I'll let you get into viewing position from the gallery, as they say. I won't ask you for a prediction. Oh, hang on, no, we haven't even spoke about. Well, you've kind of spoke about your team without showing it. So while you get in position, I'll run through it.
No one.
So Tomasi does make his debut in front of Montero and Hippier. Carlos and Contra, as is customary now, playing the wing-back positions. Rui Costa was in the AM positions last time out, but he moves back to partner Zanetti midfield. Interesting partnership, I thought, of Fiore and Kuehl supporting Sigalko this time around.
Yeah, Keane's gone, so I'm hoping for more of an unsung hero to let Kuehl flourish. That's the thinking behind that. The massive worry is with no Yeremis and no Scally, I'm taking a huge amount of tackles out of the team in one go. So, I mean, Tomasi has to hit the ground running. But obviously, it's a start for Rui Costa in a new position. It's a debut for Zanetti. It's a debut for Tomasi. So I'm not like, and Montero hasn't settled in yet either. So it's like the variables here are ridiculous, really.
Well, let me again. I'll let you return to the viewing gallery. Wish both you and Jens the very best of luck as we kick off the final game of tonight. Vikings hosting Northern Burn in a massive game for the top 6. And Sigalko trying to get that first blow in. Fails to convert. And there's Vikings for Esbury, but it's ruled out for offside. And Penza now coming forward. Hippier goes in the book. And this time, Totti on 43 minutes doesn't open the scoring for the home side. And they're trying to get a second. But there's Sigalko to level things up on 45 minutes. And wow, it was a bit of a chess match for the opening sort of 40. But in the end, we had some drama. Ian, welcome back. 2 goals in the last couple of minutes, going in level.
Yeah, I mean, text-wise, it didn't feel like we were in it. I mean, disallowed goal for them, then the goal. They look dominant. We obviously have that point where we can score at any time for obvious reasons. Mm-hmm. Doesn't look like they've seen a lot of it in key positions. Exeter, and Penza, Smith, and have been starved a little bit of possession, but they're obviously all playing reasonably well. Mm-hmm.
I presume Jens has probably gone to sleep. So, Dad, if you're in charge of substitutions, just let me know what you'd like to do. In the meantime, we'll tick over to Northern Burn. It looks okay from sort of contra downwards, but that 4 6s in a row is unburn-like.
Not from the last few games. I mean, Chiotis has had, 2 5s in the last 4 games. Hippier, Larsen's been dropped from having a 5 and a 6. Hippier had 1 5. Carlos has flattened out a little bit to the point where I think he might even now be lower in my average ratings than Ian Hart.
Wow.
Because Ian Hart was absolutely on fire when Carlos was injured.
Yep.
That I have to go as is till 60, no question of that, and see how it goes.
And Dan is too. So for the final time tonight, let's resume the action and roll to 60. Seeing Penz's name, fucking hell, all the time flying by, and we pause the game in about 64 minutes, with it still at 1 apiece. Let's see if Dan wants to alter anything here. No disciplinary issues. Couple of 6s, but that's the lowest rating throughout the 11. No fitness issues either. So how much faith does Dan have in this starting 11? We will find out shortly. Is there any game changes amongst that? Obviously, ZZ Roberts could be. But I'm wondering how you would work that. While we wait for Dan to decide, let's bring on Northern Burns. Again, 6 ratings throughout the team. Hippier, the only player on a yellow condition-wise. Again, no real concerns in my opinion. Ian, would you like to make any alterations?
Chun-Su for Fiore, please.
And is that it?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, so just the one change. And Dan's saying Smith off, Roberts on. That will do. So that I will do. As we resume the action of this final game into the final 15 minutes. And there's Roberts. Oh, but it's well saved. 10 minutes now. Dimble suggested that we hadn't had any draws yet tonight. Could the last game be the only one to be a draw? Indirect free kick awarded. And Penza, Roberts. No goal for the home side. And there's Penza. It's 2-1. What a goal that is for Vikings. And Burner being drawn right into the mix if results stay like this. Free kick awarded to the home side. 3 minutes only to be added on. And Penza. Ball hits Tomazi. As Tato says, the Scally better than Tomazi. Free kick to Vikings. Walker to take. Deflects off the wall. Into injury time we go. Roberts, fine save though. Cannavaro, and that must do it for Vikings. Huge goal for them. Huge goal in the race for top 6. And while Ian didn't even wait for the full-time whistle, he came straight back as soon as that third goal went in. And in truth, Ian, as much as I hate to say it with you on CoComs, Vikings probably deserved it.
No, we were nowhere near. The way it panned out when I knew Jeremies wasn't playing, I knew I was debuting Tomasi and losing Scally. I didn't really want to account for it by changing the formation, so I kind of plumped for as is, but change of personnel. I thought we'd lose by 1 goal, in all honesty. So to lose by 2 is a bit of a stinger. And maybe I should have kept Fiore on, but no, well played, Jens and Dan, fully deserved. But hopefully back to full strength next week at home, and we've got a lot to play with next week.
Well, you were certainly in the game, and you made the Vikings work hard for it, and that's why they've got a couple of players there rating 9, and Penza himself getting man of the match. Solid ratings throughout. Very, very good performance by the home team.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a few things that concerned me. Wasn't it Totti coming back in? He wins games for you. Like I said, he might be 7s and 8s. It might not be off 9s and 10s, but he chose tonight to have a 9. They'd have won if he was on a 7 or an 8. But I mean, there's a few excellent contributions, but they're not a one-man team. They've done great transfer business, and they've got probably one of the best centre backs in the league. Like I say, they've shored up that goalkeeper situation. They got the better end of the Mapenza Crespo deal, and he's hit the ground running. It's they're looking in great shape, and I got to take me out off to him. They battered us. Yeah, can't complain.
And as I flash your side's stats up, anything jump out of you straight away?
I've got a conundrum in midfield. I lost 2. I mean, the Tomasi thing was a risk. He's had a good game tonight.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have 2 gaps to fill potentially, because obviously I've let 2 guys go. So I need to get my head around figuring out that situation. I think bringing Chunsu on was probably a mistake, but I've got guys to come in.
Okay. Well, congratulations to Vikings who win the final game of the evening. And that leads the classifiers looking like this. Yes, Dimble, you were right, no draws. Because it was Aston 0, Fulchester 1, Dragons 1, Triple P 2, East Coast 2, Badgers 0, Gazelles 1, Rose 0, Haggis 3, Celtics 1, Vikings 3, Burn 1, and Casuals 4, Bostock Stanley 2. That seems so long ago now, doesn't it? And that leaves the table looking like this. Coast get to 40 points. And then we've got Burn in second on 37. Gazelles a point further back on 36. And just look at the state of this now. So we've got Haggis 35, Fulchester 35, Vikings 35, all above the dotted line. Casuals 35 below the dotted line. Dragons have gone from, were they 3rd or 4th at the start of the night? All the way down to 8th on 34 points. Celtics, they're 8 points off it. I think I'm fairly confident in saying anyone from Celtics down isn't going to make it now, because they're not all going to drop that amount of points. But that is ridiculous. There is 3 points separating yourself in second from Dragons in 8th.
It's been a very good night for Dimble, hasn't it? That's the thing. Dimble's like, he got that win. No one around him was able to gain ground. I mean, I've got to say, I mean, you look at like the 4 teams, well, the 5 teams behind me, Gazelles, Haggis, Fulchester, Vikings, Casuals, they all had tricky ones tonight. They've all done great in the situation that they're in. Yeah, I mean, I look behind us, no wins in 5. And it's such I don't know what it is with my teams, but it's such a familiar feeling. You get to like 16, 17 games in, you're absolutely romping it, and then all of a sudden you can't buy a win. And I could just like, I look at those guys behind us. I hope they're all playing each other next week. Otherwise, we're out.
Well, shall we find out? Obviously, this is the last round of proper fixtures before Christmas. On Thursday night, we will have the Cup semi-finals. And then obviously, if I've got the dates right, next Sunday is Christmas, isn't it? Is it Sunday that's Christmas?
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously there'll be no show at all on Sunday. And then I need to work out my Christmas schedule, what I'm doing, if anything, through my week off. I'll confirm that. But yeah, Thursday will be the Cup semi-finals. Next time we resume the action, we've got Badgers hosting Astor, Stanley against Celtics, Gazelles Vikings, huge, 2 teams currently inside the top 6. Burn Haggis, huge, 2 teams currently inside the top 6. Triple P host Fulchester. Casuals, just outside the dotted line, host top of the table Coast. And yes, I'll do the bottom of the table in a second. And Rose in 13th hosting Dragons, who have fallen out of the top 6 altogether. And 4 points it is still separate Asta from White Rose. It is very, very tight. It is very, very entertaining. And there is just 5 games to go, Ian. As I click through these stats, is there any final comments from yourself before I thank you and say goodnight?
Other than another great show, not an awful lot. Thanks to a couple of teams who have pulled out a couple of results. Otherwise, it would have been an even worse night for us. I'm looking at Triple P. Thanks for that. But yeah, it's we always get to this point in the season, and there's conversations over it looking really, really awkward and whatnot. And yeah, I'm feeling it as much as ever this at this point of any season. So it's I'm looking forward to the next game, but I'm also dreading it.
Well, thank you very much for stepping in tonight. Really do appreciate it. And obviously you won't be doing co-coms again now, so let me wish you and your family a very happy Christmas.
Thanks, mate. You too and all.
But yes, so Thursday night will be the Cup semi-finals. I'd like to invite all 4 of the managers who are involved to come on comms if they'd like to for the occasion. And yeah, the details of what I'll be doing over Christmas with regards to Super League will follow either Thursday or probably Friday once I've got my head around when I've got Aidan, when I don't have Aidan, etc. But Ian, thank you very much again from me and my legendary co-commentator here. It's getting very, very interesting in the Super League. We'll see you Thursday for the Cup. Good night.